So today we're talking about monetizing your platform. The previous session was about growing your platform. It was about going from, in theory, zero followers to hundreds of thousands of followers. But as a lot of people on TikTok realize who might make a dancing video as a teenager and go insanely viral and build a huge following, but don't necessarily know how to market it or monetize it. A lot of times people go viral on these platforms or build an audience or whatever it is and don't get anything for it. And at the end of the day, the way that social media works is that it's a business. These apps are huge conglomerates. They employ thousands of people, and any sort of attention that you're creating for the app, whether it be watch time through a video that you post and having a lot of people watch it, or just generally be entertainment value or something that's really profound that people share off the app and get people onto it, you're making money for the app if you're posting on it, no matter who you are. And I think people aren't necessarily aware of this asymmetrical sort of transaction that's always occurring behind social media. Yet I think that's one of the first principles I think is really important to be aware of, is that social media at the end of the day is a business. Whether or not you are like making money from it directly, the app is making money from you. At the very essence, the main sort of revenue source that a lot of people are aware of is the fact that you're seeing ads on the app. People pay to have those ads on the app for you to see it. And if you click a link or if you even buy a product from it, it gives even more money to these companies. So you are making money for the apps right now, whether or not you know it, unless you're completely devoid from using social media, which if you're here, you probably aren't. Now, this presentation will be about how you can also gain from that transaction, and you can make a living or make money or make some side cash from social media across different types of content creation, different sort of like video styles, or across platforms as well. And I'll be talking about all of the different ways you can do this. But I'm going to first start with a quick introduction. I already had a bit of one, but quick facts here. It's graduated from Yale, first student body president, Gen Z historian is my brand on social media. I have a lot of followers on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That's less important than the other thing I'm going to talk about, which really is my trajectory at Yale. So when I came into Yale, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. My parents really said that I should just do tech because I can come out of here with a computer science degree and have like a decent job in XYZ, like normal living circumstances that a Yale or Ivy League student is told their entire lives they should be doing. I hated computer science with everything inside of me. So I switched and pivoted to the next best thing in their eyes, which would have been like this finance consulting business area. And I was going to do that for a long time. I did an internship in consulting, and I personally just did not find it was right for me for multiple reasons, but maybe above all of them, the work style was really gruesome, in my opinion, and not necessarily like compared to other similar jobs, like other finance consulting jobs, but just compared to the life that I wanted to live coming out of college. I honestly have like this entrepreneurial mindset. I like being my own boss. I like choosing my own hours. I can put in a lot of work, but I want to do it sort of on my terms and on projects and things that I care about. And I think that was very incompatible with jumping into corporate America directly after college. And I started to see like the warning signs, like the canary in the coal mine, whether it be through like articles I read about people just generally being unhappy in their jobs, or the pandemic and how everyone was joining this sort of great resignation of quitting their jobs more generally, or even from my friends and family who were just like, maybe not my family, they really liked my consulting job, but from my friends who were saying like, you probably don't have the personality for this, like you're doing really cool work outside of it. Are you sure that you want to go into consulting? And I think after a while, and after also like sort of simultaneously building a social media platform that I was just really doing for fun, not monetizing at all, I was like, actually, I don't want to do this out of college. I don't want to do it at all. I don't want to do it for a year. I don't want to do it for 2 years. I don't want to do it here. I don't want to do it there. I don't want to do it anywhere, right? Like I just did not want to do this. And I wanted to have the ability to graduate into doing something that I really loved. In the society that we live in, you can't just do what you love without any sort of understanding or income because you need to survive, right? I want to go full time into what I'm doing. So then I had to start critically thinking about how can I build a sort of sustainable source of income from the work that I'm doing in an ethical way, more or less too. I mean, like obviously like a nebulous concept, but there's a lot of like scams and other things that you'll just find on social media. And I think that's just like really bad, whether it be like Ponzi or pyramid scams or just selling things that are bad or buying followers and trying to monetize those to advertisers. Like there's just a lot of messy things that that catch up to you after a while. But I was like, how can I like authentically build a source of income from what I'm doing over the long run? So that's like the story that grounds how I got to where I am today, where now I'm a full-time content creator. The only thing I do partnerships and other like work, but it's all centralized upon content creation. I don't work for anyone but myself. So here I just outlined some of there's a panel from my previous presentation. I don't just run my own sort of Khalil Green accounts. I run Yale Vibes, which is like sort of an account that started for fun that shows pictures of Yale from students. I don't monetize that because almost all of the student pictures are like volunteer basis. So it's just a complete fun project, no money involved. I think we might have did like a garden catering thing where we gave out free chicken nuggets, but we didn't make any money from that. And then there's also Rhymes with a Reason, which was an internship that I worked at. And that was more direct monetization because the whole part of my internship and the whole importance of it was that I was supposed to grow their following and grow their social media so that they can sell more of their educational literacy program to more schools and more organizations. And as a part of that internship, I catalyzed a partnership between Rhymes with Reason, which is this company that teaches kids vocabulary through rap music and other popular music through a digital curriculum, and the Boys and Girls Schools of America, which is this huge nonprofit that provides before school and after school care for students across the nation, K through 12. And in that, Rhymes with Reason gained this huge business opportunity and is now in front of 215,000 more students across the nation. And that was largely driven by their presence on social media and their branding, which was a part of my internship. So my experience comes from more than one place. So I just want to give that as a precursor to some of the information I'm going to share today. And also, just for anyone's awareness, I'll probably be talking for maybe another 20 to 25 more minutes. And then we'll go for the rest of the time up until around 6:30 with Q&A. So as I speak, if any questions come up, feel free to, I'm not sure if you have chat, they do. You guys do have chat access, so feel free to put it in the chat or just write it down for the end of the presentation. Okay, so we're gonna jump into it. Here's like how I'm organizing it. I don't necessarily refer to these specific sections throughout it, but like you can kind of think of the trajectory of the presentation like this. First, we're just going to talk about forms of monetization, how you can monetize your content on social media. Second, we're going to talk about the principles of monetization. So like I frame it as a series of sort of rhetorical questions of things that you should be aware of and thinking about as you go about monetizing. And the last slide, really, it's not even more of a section, it's just a slide, but it's like the action steps, like the 1, 2, 3 of getting started with monetizing your content. So I had this disclaimer in my previous one, on my previous presentation, but I want to reinforce it here. And that disclaimer is that social media replicates social issues. So last time I just talked about the general bias that suppresses a lot of the content from marginalized influencers, whether that be racially marginalized or gender-wise or sexual orientation or ability, right? But I also want to talk about how that necessarily and specifically manifests with monetization. So one of the things that a study showed, this is from Business Insider, but it shows how Black influencers are making significantly less money than their white counterparts. And there's another story that talks about how the biggest racial pay gap in any industry is influencer advertising. So forget even replicating social issues, it exacerbates them. It shows them at their worst through social media. And I think that's something to be hyper aware of because I don't want to make it seem like the advice that I'm sharing is completely going to help everyone maybe at the same rates and that there's not other barriers that people face based on different identities. I'm sharing my personal experience, but also research from just online more generally and statistics and quotes and stuff like that, but also a lot of my friends who are from diverse backgrounds and have various different experiences. And I just try to synthesize it as much as possible into general principles that are hopefully, once again, generally helpful. But of course, there's a recognition of this. And a part of the work that I do on social media with my platform is advocating and highlighting this issue to bring awareness around it and fight for equity for creators from different backgrounds. And I was actually featured recently in Forbes magazine, and I'll share that link at the end for this work specifically. So this is going to be a long slide. This is one of the, I always talk about main slides, slides where you should take notes. This is definitely one of them. So this is the slide about the forms of monetization that you can come across on social media. It's very quick, 5 points, but I'm going to go through each one. So the first one is the idea of a creator fund, or more generally, the idea of the platform paying you. So on TikTok, the creator fund is a literal sort of pool of money that they have that they pay out to influencers based on how many views your videos or your content is getting over the span of a certain amount of time. Like on TikTok, I think it's per month. So on the creator fund, if I made a video and it got 1 million views, and I made another one that got 2 million views, so on and so forth, all in this previous month of February, at the end of the month, I might get like $100 or something. I'm not sure if that's exact conversion rate or whatever it is, but that's a hypothetical scenario. That's what a creator fund does. A lot of platforms have a creator fund now. I think Instagram has one for their reels or something adjacent to it for their reels. TikTok definitely has one. I don't think LinkedIn has one. I think the biggest one that you'll find, and it's not necessarily a creator fund per se, but I think you could think of it as one, is YouTube. So YouTube, you can create content and passively make a lot of money just from the views without doing any of these donations, not doing brand deals, not doing products, whatever it is. I think YouTube shows ads on your videos, but like you don't actually do anything. It kind of just comes from YouTube. I think YouTube is just generally known for people being able to just create content on YouTube, do nothing else, and gain a wage that's like, for a lot of people, a living wage. And I think that's something that's really nice about YouTube. TikTok, on the other hand, no one would ever say TikTok Creators Fund is enough to sustain anyone. So I was, when I first started posting just for fun, not thinking about monetization, I was getting money from the Creator Fund, and I didn't even realize it until later on. But it was like, it's enough to like buy a nice dinner or like buy groceries, right? Like I didn't use it for that, but it's not living wages, right? And I think that's something that's really important. So that's number one. Number one way you can get it is like passively through whatever sort of fund pays you from the platform. The second thing that you can do, and I kind of go through these based off of how small to large of a creator you are, or how much you're thinking about it. The second thing that you can do is donations. I did this for a little bit, though. I don't know. I didn't personally feel the need to ask for donations because it kind of felt weird. So if I do ask for donations, it's to like an organization, because I am able to monetize in different ways, which I go on to, not from like some sort of super altruistic maybe thought process. But I think for a lot of people, like they will have their Cash App or something similar for people to donate to if they enjoy the content, which is a way that people get money. And another sort of like form of donations, which I probably should have made its own bullet, but subscriptions. So there are platforms like Patreon, or I guess I can also mention, but like OnlyFans, for example, where people are able to create like content in this sort of way, and other people can buy subscriptions to see that content. And that's more of like maybe a secondary way of monetizing your platform. And oftentimes people also are able to make living wages off of like a Patreon or OnlyFans or something like that. The third way is brand deals. And there's like sort of more typical, stereotypical, I'm an influencer, I do brand deals sort of things. I make a lot of maybe like half of my income from brand deals. And I can show a few examples of what a brand deal might look like. So there's ones where it's very just like specifically advertising something, right? So what we have here is the example of Blair Imani, who is an influencer that's like sort of my peer. At least like I talked to her, and she makes similar content about education. And for Pride last year, she advertised Skittles. Like this is an advertisement. She created it. It's a part of like a campaign for Skittles supporting LGBTQ plus influencers and creators. And I think she did like specific background just to make sure. I mean, there's the idea of rainbow capitalism, of course, but I think there was like an important donation as a part of it, which is why she accepted it, of course. But this is definitely one of those examples of just like a plain and simple advertisement, as one might think of it. And then hold on. So that's advertising. Second one is like a campaign. So a campaign is not necessarily you're advertising something, but it's more the idea that you're showcasing your brand with another sort of like, or you're usually creating content or showcasing your brand as a part of another company's mission to be like to show something, right? So this is kind of general speak, but I'll show you the example here and hopefully you'll understand from this. There's a campaign that I did personally.
Gen Z called.
Okay, let me see if I can make this bigger.
We did that. What many people call Gen Z culture, we did that. And by we, I mean Black Americans. From the ice in my veins post to the swag face, our viral trends have built the careers of non-Black creators across platforms. But at the same time, Black American creators often go erased and forgotten. But this Juneteenth, let's give credit where it's due. Let's celebrate the freedom of the enslaved people who invented Black American culture, and let's cherish the ways in which their descendants continue to build upon that culture every single day.
So this was a part of Instagram's We Did That campaign, which was something related to Juneteenth, where they paid Black creators to just share something that Black people had started based on content that you already creating too. So I felt it was a very nice campaign, I think, personally to be a part of, because like I didn't feel forced to do anything that I wouldn't have already done. So in this case, I talked about Gen Z culture, how that comes so much from the Black community. And that was a campaign. I didn't sell Instagram, like it was through Instagram, the company. I didn't necessarily like sell a specific thing or like even highlight Instagram. I just shared information, but it was a part of the campaign that they wanted to advertise. So I got paid for that. And then the last thing is an ambassadorship. So this is kind of similar to campaign and advertising, though it's over a long time. And there's like two types of ambassadorships. There's like the ambassadorships that are like sort of micro influencer, where there might be like someone who's famous on their campus and they get an ambassadorship, and it's sort of like an internship pay style where it's like over the course of time you get a certain amount of money. And then there's like huge ambassadorships where like you might think of Serena and I think Adidas. So Serena Williams, she has I'm not sure if it's called ambassadorship, but it's a long-term partnership brand-wise with a sports company or with a sports clothing company, and that pays huge bucks, right? So I have an example of the more like micro-influencer, but you guys might have seen on your campuses or in your life the idea of a Bumble honey. And I have friends who are Bumble honeys, but these are sort of brand ambassadors for Bumble who are often on college campuses. They wear Bumble merch. They walk around in yellow Bumble stuff and they tell you to download Bumble and find your true love, right? So that's a form of a brand ambassadorship. And these are all kind of, once again, under the bucket of a brand deal, because you're working with a larger brand in some way and getting paid for advertising their products, for being a part of their campaign, or becoming an ambassador for whatever work they're doing. So that's a big one. The fourth probably huge one is product and service sales. So personally, I think in a way, most of my income comes from this bucket, though a lot comes from brand deals. It's just generally not as sustainable as the product and service sales. I personally don't sell products, but I have an example of someone who does. So this is Lanese. She makes sort of like racial justice, like news reporting commentary about things that are happening every week. And she has a catchphrase that says like, I'm gonna keep it Black, but I'm gonna keep it brief. And that's her catchphrase. She sells like, she sells, tongue twister, she sells merchandise that has this catchphrase on it. And it has like t-shirts and there's skirts and there's crew necks. I want to say some of it's donated somewhere, I'm not sure, but either way, like this is her brand, this is her merchandise and she's selling it. And I'm sure this helps her to continue to create content, invest into the research and all of those things. But like, once again, she monetizes it in this way. And their service sales. So more specifically, I'll go into this. I didn't have a direct link here, but here's my website. So the service that I provide outside of what I'm doing on social media is like, I do speeches. Maybe that's it. I want to say I would do consulting. I don't really do consulting because I don't do long-term partnerships, but I give speeches to organizations about the history and future of diversity and inclusion. So what that looks like more specifically is that I will go to an organization, let's say LinkedIn, for example, and talk to them about like equity and the history of like marginalization in the United States. And I think something very nice about it is that I feel like if I were doing this as a part of a large organization, I might have to like mince my words, and I could talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, but maybe not like the hard, like racial justice stuff that is maybe more eye-opening for these people. But I was able to like have a presentation and talk about, I'll speak hypothetically because I'm not sure if I signed an NDA on some of these, but like, let's say hypothetically, if there's an organization that's in a neighborhood and like I can easily Google that organization's history of gentrifying that neighborhood, I can be like, hey, like this is happening, and call it the gentrification, and just generally highlight like a lot of concepts that I think are helpful to educate people on. Whether or not it converts into direct action, I can't say it does in all cases, but I give these educational speeches. That's a service that I provide outside of my social media content creation. But that's definitely bolstered by having a platform where I can also, that shows like some of the work that I do, shows some of the arguments I'm likely to make, and just shows a lot of the research and effort that I put into content creation. So that's products and services. And the last thing is just the expansion into other markets. So here's an example that comes from my nightmares, but this is a movie called He's All That, and it features Addison Rae and Tanner Buchanan. I don't know who he is, but Addison Rae, as most of us, at least Gen Zers might know, she started out as a TikTok dancer, sort of along the lines of Charli D'Amelio, who you might have heard of, which is danced on TikTok. But at some point, she got big enough to expand outside of TikTok and become a movie star. Very loose term there, but a movie star. And that's her way of monetizing. Obviously, there's a hugely lucrative sort of way of thinking about it. I personally can't see myself in movies, but like, let's say for myself, like I might want to write books later on, or like there could be a TV show. I really love Henry Louis Gates Jr. and LeVar Burton and some of the work that they've done, right? Like there are ways of expanding outside of social media that I hope to do in the near future. So hopefully that's all coming soon. But that's another probably like final way of like using your social media brand is like expanding into doing something else, if once again you're trying to do this full time. So now that we talked about some of the forms of monetization, I'm going to go into the sort of principles, right? So I'm going to frame it as a few questions, talk about each question, and then move on from there. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, do you have quality content? And I, once again, linked the Growing Your Platform presentation in the thing, and that's like an hour-long presentation, but it teaches all about quality content, and that's all I talked about last time. So to answer that question, I'd say view that video. I talked about quality content being novel, being entertaining, and being useful. That's just my framework, but of course there are others, but you really ask yourself, do you have quality content? Because without quality content, you're likely to have a harder time monetizing your stuff. Though once again, because of the aforementioned biases, there are content creators who go on there, have horrible content, but because of biases and privileges, be able to monetize everything, but not everyone can do that. So just for your awareness, quality content is important. The next thing you have to think about is like, why would a brand work with you, right? Like, what are you offering? Once again, this is business. Like, it is business at the end of the day. These apps are making money off of you. These brands want to make money off of you. And if you want to be able to sustain yourself through income from it, you have to think about it from a sort of business lens in some cases. So like, one, like, can you produce entertaining content for their audiences? I will give another example really quickly. So here is a campaign that I did recently. Let me how it sound.
When someone says the GOAT or the greatest of all time, who do you think of? Is it Michael Jordan? Maybe Simone Biles, Serena Williams? Or maybe a better question might be, who was the first person to be called the GOAT? In honor of Black History Month, I've teamed up with the Bleacher Report to give a short history of the term greatest of all time. Well, the popularity of the term jump-started when the rapper LL Cool J released his
Yeah, I'm not gonna play the whole thing. Spoiler alert, it comes from Muhammad Ali. But that's an example of a sort of producing entertainment for audiences. This specific brand deal was with the Bleacher Report, which is a sports magazine. And as a part of Black History Month, they were just highlighting things that come from sports culture, but also Black people. So like the first one I did was about the touchdown celebration, which a lot of Black athletes are famous for. And this one's about the term greatest of all time, or the GOAT, which comes from Muhammad Ali. So That's like one thing. Like they saw that I could create a narrative because I do history telling, historical analysis, and those things. So they trusted me to create content that would be entertaining for their audiences, for their engagement, and just general sort of like their service that they provide, which is entertainment through a news media. The second thing is, can you increase direct sales? So this is like a reason why they might go, like why Adidas might go to Serena, because she'll sell more Adidas to people. Like they will directly, like if she puts a link in her bio for the Serena uh, athletic wear, whatever the case might be. I think she has her own brand too, S by Serena. But if she does that and it sells more, like that's an investment. Like that's why a brand would want to work with her. Increasing brand awareness, like not all times are you necessarily increasing direct sales, but a lot of times my brand partnerships have been smaller apps that are looking to have a larger audience. Like there was one that curated news content, sort of like TikTok with a feed, and they didn't have anyone on it in the beginning. They were just starting up, but they saw that I have a platform and I have a lot of followers, so they'll pay me to advertise that to other people. And the last thing I think is brand authority. And this is something where a lot of, I don't know, I've seen a lot of people, for example, mess up because brand authority is a huge thing that brands want from influencers. Nowadays, people are very trusting of influencers. If they have an influencer that they follow, especially when it comes to like social justice or something, and they attach their morals to the same sort of moral concept that that influencer espouses, then that brand authority is huge for an organization, right? So I recently, this is one where I turned it down because I thought like the brand authority would be like a horrible thing for me to attach to it. But there was like a huge fast food company. There's only a few out there, so I'll let you guess which one. But there's a huge fast food company that approaches a lot of Black influencers for Black History Month to like do a huge thing. And it happened to be a company, I'm not sure if I directly addressed to them, but I definitely did a video about food apartheid and food deserts. And what's the other term? Food swamps too, and how fast food chains often exacerbate those issues. And I would look like a hypocrite and like a whole, all types of crazy, right? If I like did a partnership with said brand and like blasted it, because they weren't expecting me to directly advertise a burger or anything, or to increase their awareness. Everyone knows what they are, or produce entertainment. It wasn't gonna be entertaining. It was just me talking about my experiences, creating content as a part of their campaign, which would have increased their brand authority at least a little bit within the Black community, I think is the goal in that case. But like I turned it down because that's something that's very valuable to them and to you as an influencer. And that's something you never always, I mean, obviously people might falter and slip up. Nobody's perfect, but the best you can, you want to protect your brand integrity, because that authority that you give other people through your brand integrity is something that's very valuable for them. So the next principle that you want to learn, and this is something that's so important, there's whole classes and books about it, but I've put it down to 4 bullet points that like are 2 words or more, 2 to 5 words. But this is such an important concept. You have to be able to negotiate whenever you're doing a brand deal. And the reason being is because a lot of times, 99 probably % of times, brands are shorting you on the money that they are going to give you. They usually, I think usually the way it works is usually like this. They have a budget, they have a maximum budget, and then they go to influencers, and then they might present a price that's usually below that budget or maybe at the budget. But then if you ask, you can usually get more money than it's being like delivered to you. And this is always the case with private companies. So if like, let's say hypothetically, like, I don't want to name any names, but let's say like a hypothetical, a huge app comes to me and they ask, okay, like I want to pay you $10 to create a video that's an hour long. I'm like, actually, like, let's say like that's like a few $100s is like the effort that would be worth putting into that, or $1,000, even more. Like these numbers go up, and I talk about how you can find out numbers later on. But that's something where your ability to ask for more money will grant you more money. And people don't realize this is the worst thing I always see influencers do. A lot of people don't know about negotiations. They never learned about it. I never learned about it. It makes sense. People don't know anything about it. But negotiations, when you are self-employed and you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to get money and you're trying to live off of this, negotiating is one of the key and fundamental skills that you need. You need to be able to negotiate. So how do you negotiate? Number one, negotiations sometimes, especially over the phone or talking, they can be very tense, and not tense in that people are screaming or yelling at you, but like tense because it's awkward to ask for more money. And sometimes people feel bad about it. Like they're just inclined to feel bad about it, X, Y, Z, whatever the case. But like, there's a difference between asking for money from an individual in your life that's a friend, for example, where like you know, like the costs on their end and like all these things, and doing it from a large organization that is probably exploiting you in the first place, right? I think that's something that's really important to like get through people's heads, is that these things are tense, but you have to try not to display too much emotion in terms of like asking very sort of tentatively or not being firm. You have to be confident in all these things, and you can have emotion. I'm not saying that everyone has emotions and you can cry right after you hang up the Zoom call, whatever the case might be, whatever you need to cope. But during the negotiations, it's important to show confidence, show a belief in yourself, because that's usually how you end up with a better sort of outcome on your terms in terms of like the financial transaction of the partnership. The second thing you want to do is anchor high. So anchoring is sort of a term, I believe, refers to the first price that you put out in a negotiation. So let's say, there's once again very hypothetical, I'm meeting with a brand and they want me to make a movie, a 2-hour movie for them. And I'm like, hey, like I want $10,000. Like I actually am fine with, let's say I'm actually fine with like $5,000. I would never do $5,000 for a 2-hour movie. It's very hypothetical. But let's say like $5,000 for a 2-hour movie. That's what I'm fine with. I'm not going to ask them for $5,000 because they're going to come back to me with like $1,000, and then I might go back and forth, and we might end up around like the 3,000 mark, and that's $2,000 less than what I even wanted. What I'm going to do is go to them with like $10,000 because it's high enough for me to start there. And if they say yes, then that's like amazing. But if they negotiate down, the place that we meet in the middle is like 5,000, which I would have been fine with. And let's say like in that case, my minimum that I like, the minimum amount, like you always want to have a minimum acceptance amount, is like 4,000. If they go below 4,000, like 3,500, I know ahead of time that I'm not going to accept that. I'm just going to move on. And that's the last thing. You have to be ready to walk away. I think I read one of those negotiation books. I got through the first page before I just got bored of it, but it was like the one by Jordan Belfort or something. And it was like, the first thing I just always remember is like, you have to be ready to walk away. Like that's like the number one rule of negotiations. You have to know your worth. Like Drake says, know yourself, know your worth, right? You have to like know how much you're worth, know the effort you're putting into, and calculate what you should be earning. So how do you go about doing that, right? There's a lot of, well, one is just a general Google search of how much influencers are making is a good idea. A lot of people don't talk about their finances in this industry. And there's a concept of financial transparency that is becoming a huger wave within the influencer space. I personally also don't talk about how much I'm making. And I'm not sure if like where that comes from more or less, but I know definitely my parents always said, don't be talking about your money for like in public with a lot of people. I will hold on to that value right now, and I might change that over time, but that's just something that's I've been very ingrained to have since I was a young child. So that's not something I talk about personally. However, you can find a lot of people talking about the specific numbers that they're making. And the way that you can do that is Business Insider. Let's say like money made micro influencers. So Business Insider is, okay, this is a good example of it. I'll just put this in the chat too. So there's a great example. Business Insider is a business magazine. Just subscribe. You can get a free trial. And I won't be able to, I'm not gonna go through my login, but basically I'll just refresh the page so you can see once more. But Business Insider is a place where you can get a free trial and you can just look really quickly at a bunch of different stories from influencers talking about how much they made with what size following and what they did, what brands they worked with. And that's the best place to get like a general ballpark for how much in a specific term, like in specific numbers, you might want to ask a company to give you if you're doing this sort of work. So hold on, let me, how do I access the chat real quick? Okay, so that's the example from right there. Let me go back to the slides. So once again, to get the specific numbers of a ballpark of people in your space, you can go to, like Business Influencer has multiple stories and articles like that you can traverse through if you create like a free account or even pay for it. I have a paid subscription. I just don't know why I'm not logged in. But I do find a lot of value in Business Insider because they talk about how much people are making, how they go about monetizing. That's one of the best resources that I personally found, but also a quick Google search. A lot of people are being like super financially transparent about the work they're making. And I think those are really great resources for influencers, often referring back to the whole systemic biases things A lot of people, especially like people of color, especially women, I believe, are like shorted money, I think is my term. Like brands will purposely not offer them as much as they're offering other people. And I think that's something that's obviously hugely messed up, and needs a systemic solution and awareness and advocacy and all of those things. But I think in the individual case at the moment being, asking and like doing these sort of negotiation best practices is really important to getting some sort of semblance of a proper valuation for the work that you're putting in. That was a mouthful. So we're almost done, but this slide is about, can you deliver? So obviously after all of this, you have to be able to make the content, do the partnership. You have to be organized. I have a Calendly, for example, for my calendar. I have an email that I look at. You have to, it's like a business, right? Like it's professionalism. You have to be responsive to emails. I'm so bad at this, but like I'm getting better. But you have to be able to like respond to emails as they come. If people have a concern with the content you're producing or the brand deal that you're doing, you have to be able to do that. If you're doing product or services that you're offering that are just like a part of your social media, then you have to also manage that like a business. Like you need XYZ professional qualities. I don't mean professional as in like wearing a suit and speaking proper, quote unquote. I just mean like you have to have good organizational hygiene that makes you someone that's easy to work with, because the easier you are to work with, the more likely brands will come back to you, and you'll build good relationships with people in these spaces that'll offer you more work so you can sustainably do this and not have to go back to consulting. So that's a really like important thing that you should all keep in mind, is you have to also have the business side of things down pat. Oh, okay, it looks like I have that twice. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to talk about is just the steps of going about it. These are 3 steps, like broken down to a little bit of sub points, but go back. But these are the main things. I'll also take notes on these. I mean, it'll be up on YouTube sometime soon, but for now, I would take notes on this. So the first one, start content creation. I told you about the growing your platform session that you can find on YouTube or in the link that I put in the chat. That's number 1. That's really important. The second thing you want to do is develop 3 things. Number 1, mode of communication. So for me, I have a little screenshot of my website front page right here, and it's khalilgreen.com. And you can see there's a huge contact me button that's in gray towards the right side of the screen. That's huge. I have a form on there that all my inquiries go through. And I also have a click here to contact me after my tagline on the front page. That leads to the same exact page as other contact me. So you see it of everything in here. The 2 things that you see the most are contact me and contact me, because you want to have the easiest form of contact in the world. If someone wants to do a brand deal with you, if someone's interested in your work, if someone wants to say hello, they need to be able to contact you as soon as possible. And you can do that easily. In my case, I have a website that houses all the things I'm going to talk about you need to develop. So number 1 is the contact, mode of communication. Number 2 is portfolio. So this is a really interesting thing. I will once again sort of get out of the presentation to show you, but let's go to khalilgreen.com. So I have a few things that kind of serve as a portfolio. The most common way that people do this is they create like a brand kit or a brand packet or something like that, where an influencer will create a PowerPoint slide that talks about their following, what type of work they do. Sometimes they'll pay someone like Etsy or Fiverr to make it for them. I never really liked that. I was like, I can just have a website that I can easily update myself. So this is kind of my portfolio, is my front page of my website. So I talk about who I am. I talk about previous clients that I've had. I have my little testimonies that I get. Testimonies are so important. I have my little testimonies. I have the news things that I've been in. I have my followers, all these things. And then I also have a newsletter too, which is sort of a portfolio because, so I talk about like the concept of DEI in the new decade, which is like a 5-point framework that I have for talking about important concepts that almost every business is failing to see because their diversity and inclusion efforts are really like internal and they're not expansive. They're not thinking about society more generally. So that's like one sort of piece of information and content that I have out there. And then another one is about like my life as a Gen Z social media person and what that looks like and how a lot of people in my generation are very obsessed with social media and like why that's the case. So these are sorts of like markers of a portfolio in terms of the intellectual ideas that I might be sharing with people, the actual content that I have, my testimonies and the portfolio of work that I've done in the past. That's like a really important thing. You have to develop like this portfolio of work of who you are so that if anyone wants to work with you, they can easily communicate with you. But if they have any hesitation, they can read through your portfolio and glance through it and look at your content and your slides and just be sold on that. Secondary, I guess like the last thing, which is probably most important, is the path monetization. You need to develop how you're going to monetize. I personally, like maybe 10 years from now, I might prove myself wrong. I don't ever see myself doing products. I don't see myself ever like selling a product. Maybe I create like this really good, I don't know, like hair care product or something, and I like brand myself like Khalil shampoo. But as of right now, I don't see that happening. So that's not my personal monetization path. In terms of services, I've always loved public speaking. I like was a public speaking tutor at Yale. I've done public speaking for a long time, never in high school, but like since I got into college, I love doing it. I could easily see myself being a public speaker. So that's where I created this portfolio of public speaking and these testimonies. And that's, excuse me, one path monetization that I'm currently using. Another thing is brand deals. Like I have social media, I have a huge following on TikTok, and there are brands out there that are really like chill. Like I don't have any personal ethic conflicts with them. Like Bleacher Report, they make their sports magazine. I'm fine with working with them. I love that. So that's one way, brand deals. And then have I done other things? Yeah, I did an internship with Rhymes with a Reason, for example, to grow their social media. That was technically a way of monetizing through my social media. That's not brand deals or public speaking, but its own like maybe consulting services, quote unquote. And then maybe I've done like a few other things like writing for an organization that I've done here and there. Those are my monetization paths. And they're very much things that I like doing, that I'm good at, that I probably would be doing either way, whatever job I was doing, but like I'm just doing it with my brand attached. And the last point that I'll say is you want to, as you continue to grow. So none of the things I mentioned really involve you reaching out. I think some people do. Like, I think there might be a whole sort of its own bucket of monetization, but a lot of people that I know, there's different ways you can sign up. There's organizations and apps and websites where you can sign up as an influencer, and sometimes they'll sell you work. I found that sometimes they're pretty underpaid, so I personally don't use those, but I'll share some of those resources in the chat once I stop sharing screen. But outside of that, some people hustle to get brand deals. So they might go on LinkedIn and find like who's the social media manager for this company that they want to work at, or they might just generally like create a TikTok with a product and like kind of just sell it anyways. And then someone might pick that up and then want to do something further. I've personally found that in my case, at least, and this once again might be coming from a place of privilege, or definitely is in some ways, but might largely be coming from a place of privilege. But as I've started to grow, a lot of people have contacted me. And I found a lot of my friends who are even outside of this space and are just like doing social media, they get contacted because once you go viral, like you are shown to a general population that's not even looking for you, but there are a lot of brand managers who are looking for people, and they'll end up seeing you regardless if you go viral enough. So as you grow your platform, I think it comes natural that people will engage with you and then might look at, if you make the mode of communication, the portfolio, and the monetization path very easy for them, you'll find work that way. But as you continue to grow, and this is somewhere that I've gotten recently, is that agents will contact you. And an agent is someone that finds work for you and does like 90% of the work in terms of like a brand deal or partnership. And then you just have to kind of like do the creative end of creating the content. So I'm trying to think of a recent brand deal I did. Oh, Red Bull, right? So through my agent, they found that like I was going down to DC just to visit home, but Red Bull was having this dancer style competition with like hip hop dancers. And Red Bull was like, oh, like we love to work with Khalil to do a history of hip hop dance TikTok, and just like go to the thing and talk about the performance and the culture behind it. And that was a brand deal that came from an agent. So that's just one example of how agents work. Managers, they don't necessarily give you work, they more guide your growth and are more like spiritual guides to you. I don't have a manager, I manage myself, I guess, right now. That might change, but they take 10%. I don't necessarily see a reason for them to be taking 10% right now, but agents, very helpful. I think if the agent ever approaches you, it'll usually be a good thing. However, one thing that I must mention, agents should not be asking you to pay them. Never, never. They should be giving you work and they can take a percentage out of it, usually around 10%, but agents should not have you pay them. No one that is giving you work or representing you for business should have you pay them, unless like a publicist who's just there to make you more famous. But agents should not ask for money. That's an important concept. Okay, so all of that said, that's pretty much it. We can go into the Q&A. I'll jump into it now, but hopefully this was really helpful and you can access all of these slides later on. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Khalil. You've given so much great insight and strategy. Yeah, so as Khalil said, we're going to open up for questions. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hands like Crystal has, or feel free to post it in the chat and we can read those out loud. So Crystal, we'll go ahead and start with you, and I'm going to unmute you.
I think Raquel had a question before me. She posted it in the chat.
Okay.
What's the question?
Hi, thank you so much, Crystal, and thank you so much, Khalil. I loved your presentation, and it's very informative. I just want to, ask as a, fellow Yalean person of color, I've been trying to, grow my platform for a long time as a business. I own a sustainable design brand, and I have an Instagram and a TikTok, and for a couple of years now, I've been trying to, grow engagement and a following, and it just hasn't been working out. So I was wondering if you had like any tips on, a way that I could like jumpstart that, because I feel like I've tried everything at this point.
Yeah. So once again, I will plug the last session. It has a lot of advice there. I think probably the most actionable thing that I can say right now, and there's one small portion of what I talk about, but I emphasize the idea of research and finding out, like, nothing new is under the sun, right? And I think there's definitely, like, you don't copy anyone else who's on these platforms, but I'm sure there's other similar creators out there, whether or not be directly selling the same thing that you're selling, or whether it might be more similar than you might think, but there are ways of like that they're doing it, and whoever's getting it right is who you should model yourself after. There's a lot of content out there. Whoever is like somehow like the way that they're setting it up or the information that they're sharing. I think in as much as you hyper focus on research prior to actual content posting, you'll find a lot of ideas for switching things up and reorienting your content so that it does go viral. But once again, that's hopefully the start of help, but please definitely watch it go on your platform. I think there's a lot of helpful advice there.
Great. Alrighty, now, Crystal, can I go ahead and unmute you?
Awesome, thank you. If my internet is skipping, I'll turn off my video because I think the thing is weird. But thank you so much, Khalil, by the way. I did like a quick talk while you were talking of like your TikTok and stuff. I'm not really on TikTok, but I know it's like a powerful tool. But I guess my question is, so I'm the owner of Crystal Clear Innovation, which is an e-learning startup. Essentially, I coach and mentor non-traditional students, and I help them get into really competitive programs. And so I was doing one-on-one coaching for a while, but then realized that that's not really sustainable as a doctoral student, and I needed a better way to coach more students. And so I published my first book where I basically highlight my journey from public housing apartments in rural Alabama to where I am now at Yale. And it helped over 400 students and reached bestseller. So I guess like the next phase of my business, because I'm realizing that like I just need a business model. And I know that content creation is a good business model, but it's not really sustainable for me right now as a student. So I was thinking like, and I saw that you had a blog as well, but what are your, I guess, ideas around using a blog as a mainstream of building your platform? Because you can build your email list from that. You can also build your social media following for that, but like, did you ever think about going the other way around? Because, so we don't really own our social media accounts.
Yeah, so I'm going to share two things in the chat. So the first one is a video by a content creator named Ali Abdal, who was a medical student and started a blog and like sort of got a wealth of opportunities from it. And he's a huge proponent of advocating for blogs for everyone. Everyone needs a blog. Everyone needs a blog on their own website. So that's okay, great, you follow him. So he's a great example. Like everyone needs a blog. Blogs help you document your journey. They serve as content within themselves. They're easy ways to grow a following too. So I think across all of the different reasonings, I think blogs are just really important. So yes, I definitely stamp of approval to that. Something else I'm going to share with you is a content creator called Carolyn Green, who goes by the Scholarship Guru, and she has her own website, and she seems to be very like similar, like academic, like she's a student herself, wrote a book about like a certain academic process of getting scholarships and applying to things. And she's a huge model, and she's also super supportive, but she's a huge model of what it looks like to be in that space specifically. And this goes like what I'm saying about research. Like there's more or less likely to be someone out there who's very much in the same lane that you are, who's getting it done and done right. A lot of times if they're like a marginalized creator themselves, they'll be very supportive and helpful with sharing resources. And she's definitely one of them. And I think that's just a good example of what it might look like to have your own website as well.
Okay, thank you so much for this, by the way. Yeah, I've been
Sure.
following Eileen for a while, and I have a website, but it's for my coaching business. It's for like it's not like my personal one. So that's a second part of the phase that I'm moving into my business. It's first creating my own website, my personal website, so that anything that I do, I can kind of just use that, as a centralized place.
Yeah, and I think they can definitely be one and the same too, right? Like you can have, I think you can merge your personal self with like your business, because I think that's a valuable thing in today's economy where like everything is really influencer driven or like personality driven. So you can continue to house your business there, but kind of like show yourself like in your process of as a student or as a business creator, whatever the case might be. And I'm also, looks like you shared your website, so everyone feel free to check that out. And I also put a blog post in there that talks about why I value everyone having their own website, because social media is helpful for getting your stuff out there, but you don't own social media. You're always making them money, always more money than they're going to give you. So having your own website is a great sort of form of ownership over your audience.
Okay, thank you so much for this. Very helpful.
Of course.
I just want to say that we're almost at the hour, and I want to just make the announcement as promised that there is a group consultation with Khalil Green that's coming up on Monday, March the 14th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. That's growing your platform and monetizing your platform. So I'll send out a follow-up email through Eventbrite that has the Zoom link. I know Emily's been waiting for a long time to ask you the question, so we'll ask the last one. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Thank you so much for your presentation. As someone who accidentally fell into content creation and is trying to figure it out, this is very helpful. I'm currently in the stage where you talked about where I'm kind of like receiving offers from different brands and different companies. And I really liked what you said about trying to pick who you work with based on what your values and what your brand is. Do you have a particular framework or like how you think about what your values as a brand is, and how do you really decide who to work with based on that? Because I'm at a point where I really don't know how to choose or how to even begin making those choices based on the offers I'm getting. Yeah.
Yeah, well, congrats for being able to say that you have like multiple offers and to choose from them. I really don't, I'm not super like harsh on it, right? So if there's like let's say like Red Bull, for example, like I don't have any ties to Red Bull, at least face value, but what they were doing, like maybe the first point that I have is that would this content naturally fit, or at least like semi-naturally fit with what I'm already doing? And are they allowing me the freedom to make the content fit with what I'm doing? So Instagram, technically they could have did a brand deal where they had me talk about, oh, like I love taking pictures of myself and I just love looking in the mirror. I'm going to be an Instagram model one day or something like that. Like that wouldn't fit normally, but they allowed me to have creativity and flexibility on what I was talking about. And that was very natural for me. Red Bull is the same thing. Like they could have had it like, oh, I love the taste of Red Bull. It tastes so good. Everyone buy a Red Bull. But no, like they invited me to go to like a hip hop thing that talked about, and I got to talk about Black culture and where it comes from. So that's probably number one. Number two is like, if they have any like huge ethical, like as a business themselves, I don't really like stand for what they're doing. So that might be like a fast food organization, right? Or if like the company itself like has a very easily, like if I Google them and the first thing that pops up or like even majorly pops up is some sort of human rights transgression, I'll probably shy away from that. But most of the people that have offered me brand deals, I've said yes to, like a good 90%. And I think it just goes, the main thing that I come across is like, if they're going to be super rigid on the content that I have to create for them and it doesn't feel natural, then I probably would say no. That never really has happened. So most times I've said yes. And the content that the brands that usually come to me, if you look at my thing, it's like usually like news organizations like Bleacher Report, USA Today. I did one with educational things like Coursera, which is an online educational thing, has come out to me. Rhymes with Reason was an ed tech company. Like a lot of education and news comes to me, and that's kind of what I do. So it like really works out.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions. It's been super insightful. It's been really helpful. I'm also a social media user. I'm trying to grow my platform. So please come out to Khalil's group consultation. I was there last week. It was so helpful. I had a lot of helpful tips to help me grow my own platform. So this one will be for both growing your platform as well as monetizing your platform. So come out. And I want to do one more plug before I say bye to everyone. Tomorrow's Innovators Toolkit session is with our very own SciCity's Rochelle Goodman on Branding 101. So, you can see how branding will help with your social media. So thank you very much.
Really
Have a good
quickly, I just
night.
want to, okay, but really quickly, if it's okay, I just want to emphasize what the group consultation is. So for anyone who wants to know, this is more general advice. Like I can only give like little short answers to what you guys are asking. In the group consultation, you can ask specific questions about your specific circumstance, as specific, super specific. And I give exact advice about like what I would do if I were in your shoes. So it's very valuable if you have like a larger question, and we have a lot of time, so we can get in nitty gritty. I could just like tell you exactly what I would do.
Mhm. Yeah, and we even shared our own content and had a really specific
Yeah.
note. So that's great. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. All right.